This is our new main character. His face is covered with horror, because he never thought that games should be taken seriously. Now he watches as a man plunged his sword into the body of a young girl who screamed furiously from the piercing pain. The murdered girl is Louis Yi's sister. Her name is Louis Yun. The girl's eyes are wide open in horror, and blood is oozing from her mouth. Watching such a tragic situation, it is painful for the guy to realize that his sister was killed by some freak. The main character endlessly replays memories in his head and tries to understand where he made a mistake, where he miscalculated. Probably everything went wrong from the very first gaming session for fun. Now lying on the ground, the hero is trying to find the mistake he made, which could lead to this tragedy. Someone approaches the guy lying on the ground from behind. While the hero was thinking about his actions, the man who was behind him plunged a sword straight into his back. Blood began to flow from Louis Yi's mouth, and he himself screamed in pain. The sword pierced through Louis Yi's body, causing a large amount of blood to flow from the through hole, causing a large red stain to form on his shirts. The guy's strength began to slowly leave him. He was lying on his stomach with his arms stretched back, and the blood was flowing from the wound, leaving a large puddle on the ground. He looked at his dead sister, whose eyes widened in horror. Tears were dripping from them, and blood was oozing from her mouth in a small stream. Louis Yi realized that if he had not entered into this game, from which there is no turning back, none of this would have happened. It happened. Wincing in severe pain, Louis Yi finally thought that if he had taken the game seriously in the first place, his beloved sister would still be alive. The guy promised his late parents that he would always be by her side, would not hurt anyone, would take care of her and protect her, but he could not fulfill this promise. Everything went well. They lived happily with their sister for 3 years, until an ordinary computer game became a reality and changed all the rules of life. The guy hated everything around him. I hated a world in which all the rules could change so easily and quickly. I hated myself for just mindlessly playing the game and not taking it seriously. He hated his sister's killer, who killed her so coldly. The killer thought that he was done with Louis Yi, so he was about to leave. But suddenly he felt something behind him and turned his head. Having miraculously gained strength for the sake of revenge on his sister, Louis Yi rushed to the man with a scream and raised his hands up. He wanted to strike him with his sword, but the man deftly dodged, causing the sword to lightly touch his shoulder, and an unpleasant smell came from the wound. The guy grabbed his head and grimaced at the unpleasant smell that filled the entire space around him. Crouching on the ground, the hero looked into the eyes of the scumbag who killed his sister. The man looked back angrily. He did not expect such an action from the guy. Looking the man straight in the eye, Louis Yi said that he hated him. The killer wanted to deal with him, because the hero had no right to attack him. The man swung his weapon at him and dealt Louis, and a fatal blow. Blood gushed in all directions. Morning came, the sun had long risen and was fully illuminating the room in which Louis Yi was sleeping. The guy suddenly opened his eyes and did not understand anything. He had just fallen at the hands of the bastard, and now he was lying on the bed. Outside the window, city noise could be heard from the room. Sitting down on the bed, the hero does not understand why he remained alive and tries to find answers. Louis Yi did not immediately recognize the room in which he woke up. Having taken a good look around, the guy recognizes his old apartment where he lived with his parents and sister 3 years ago. A girl came into the guy's room holding a box in her hand. Her voice was heard from the door. The hero immediately recognized it. This voice belonged to his sister, who was now safe and sound. Seeing the living Louis Yun in front of him, the hero was at a loss as to why he and his sister survived, not understanding what was happening. In confusion, the hero asks to name her, what year and month it is. Putting the box on the table, Louis Yun laughs at the guy's question, but then still says that today is July 27th. Louis Yi doesn't let the girl finish and continues for her, saying that today is 2030. The guy, lost in his thoughts, got out of bed and went to the window. Looking out the window, the hero realized that he had returned to the year when he first tried to play this mysterious game. Fate decided to give the guy a chance, correct his past mistakes, and protect his sister, as he promised his parents. Concerned about her brother's behavior, Louis Yun approached him to ask if he was okay. The guy hugged his sister tightly, saying that there was no need to worry about him. Everything was fine with him. He mentally promised himself to protect her. The game Primordial Kingdom was launched on July 27th, 2030, and on September 1st, it had already taken over the real world, in which games began between players in the struggle for survival. In this game, every player was for himself. Everyone fought for power and money, sacrificing and killing each other. Louis Yi analyzed he lost because he had a low level in the game, and now fate gave him a second chance to make things right. Louis Yun sharply pushed the guy away from her, telling her brother that it was wrong to pester his sister. Scratching his head, Louis Yi said he had no intention of pestering her. The time was approaching 8, which means that the Primordial Kingdom game should launch soon, and there were only 34 days left before the world was taken over. The hero put on the glasses, preparing to enter the game, Before planning, he needs to reach a high level as soon as possible in order to protect the real world from attack. The hero swears that he will become the strongest player in the game. The hero lay down on the bed. On his glasses, he pressed the button to start the game, and the virtual one actually started. A blue background with yellow highlights appeared in front of him. The game was starting to load. While the hero was waiting for the game to start, some players were already playing it. In a small room, there are players preparing to fight their opponent. One of the players is already demonstrating the level of his development in the game and shows his most ordinary shot. After that, he charges the weapon with his power and smoke appears around him. The player makes a sharp movement with his hand, causing a huge block of stone to split into two parts, as if it were ordinary bread. The game for Louis Yi will start in 10 seconds. The countdown began, the numbers gradually replaced each other. A few more seconds and the hero will go to the virtual world. The game started and a scoreboard appeared in front of him, welcoming the new player. The hero is immersed in a world different from the real one. The guy has a magnificent view of the city, which is called the Primordial Kingdom. There were as many crazy people gathered around who decided to play this game as the hero himself. Before starting the game, Louis Yi decides to first go to the gym to practice using different types of weapons. Having arrived at the place, the hero looks around the room. In the center of it, there is a large screen, on which a huge selection of various weapons is presented. The hero approaches the screen and, looking at it, decides which weapon to try first. To begin with, he chooses katana, one of the types of bladed weapons, and begins to master the skills of wielding it. By the way, my favorite YouTube viewer, if you subscribe now and leave your comment, then tonight you will definitely have a dream, where you will be the main character of the manga. This will definitely work. Try it. After several hours of training, the hero is a little tired. He receives a notification on the monitor screen that he has mastered the katana 100%. Putting the katana aside, the guy decides to choose another weapon to master. Running his fingers across the monitor, the hero looks for something that might suit him. Of the thousands of weapons presented, his choice falls on a huge sword, which he decides to try next. Outside the gym, the voices of two players are heard. They are incredibly happy that they are in this game that will help them earn money. The smile on the girl's face falls and she decides to ask her companion about the place where they are now. Some sounds were heard from the gym, so the heroes decided to go see what was happening there. In a special room for mastering types of edged weapons, Louis Yi continued to try new types of weapons, practicing with them for several hours. Going inside, the heroes noticed one training player in the middle of the hall. Newcomers also decide to learn how to use weapons. They go to the second monitor, look for suitable equipment for themselves. Not even 5 minutes of training have passed before the beginners quickly get bored with this fun. They throw the equipment on the floor. The guy and the girl quickly went out, because to level up the skill of using edged weapons to 100%, you need to make 10,000 hits. This is too long and tedious for them. The heroes decide to go elsewhere first to level up their players. Before leaving, the girl turns around again and looks at Louis Y. By the sweat of his brow, Louis Yi continued to persistently develop his skills. On the very first day, he managed to master the use of a katana, swords, and a halberd. The hero overheard the conversation of guys passing by, who were bragging about their high levels, which they were able to achieve in a few days. Louis Yi has been training here for about 3 days, but still his level has not changed. He did not understand where the players were able to achieve such high results in a couple of days, because he's still first level. The guy thinks for a long time about what he should do to become the strongest player in a short time. He decides to raise a couple of levels, and after that continue training. The hero clenches his fist with all his strength and refuses this scenario. He must gain power, because this is the most important thing for the players. It was the power that was put into the weapon by the guy who split a huge block of stone with one blow. Louis Yi made a decision. He will not leave here until he learns to use power. So he and Choi Woo walked and talked about how the game has a very strong punishment for death. The character immediately loses all his skills and level, and starts leveling up all over again. Passing by the training hall, the heroes decided to look there again, so he was shocked that Louis Yi was still spending time here. So he and Choi Woo did not understand what the guy wanted to achieve with his actions, because in the gym, he would not achieve the result he needed. The heroes stood and heatedly discussed Louis Yi, saying that with his skills he would not be able to defeat even the weakest player, because in all his training, he had not received a single level. Louis Yi, day after day, mastered more and more new types of bladed weapons from the proposed list, honed his skills so that in practice he could use them properly. Taking the guy by the hand, so he led him out, saying they will first raise their ratings and then return to learn how to wield weapons. Several days of persistent training bore fruit. Louis and received a notification that he had successfully completed training in mastering all types of edged weapons. Holding the weapon in his hand, the hero breathed out a sigh of relief. But the hero still remained confused. He spent so many days learning to master various equipment, but never received a drop of power. Louis Yi began to develop his further actions. The guy came to the conclusion that perhaps bladed weapons are not suitable for him. Then he decides to go to another room where types of firearms are presented. Louis Yi goes there. He must 100% skillfully use all types of firearms that may also be useful to him in battle. Going inside, a large room opened up in front of the hero again. Near the wall, there was a large screen on which various types of firearms were presented. Opposite this screen, there was a shooting target. He put the pistol he had chosen to begin with to his forehead, thinking that other players had already reached the 30th level. Maybe, having also mastered firearms, he would become like them, strong and powerful. Louis Yi points his hand with the gun forward and aims at the center of the target. He understands that he will never give up for the sake of his sister and begins hard training. A few days later, so he again looks into the gym to master types of bladed weapons. The girl looking around the room was very surprised when she didn't find Louis there. So he was about to leave when the sound of a gunshot was heard from the next room. The girl was frightened by such loud sounds. They reminded her of a shootout between street gangs. The girl began to wonder what was happening there, so she decides to follow the sound. Entering the room from which the sounds of a shot were heard, the girl sees a guy she knows in the room. So he covered her mouth with her hands. The alarmed girl cannot understand what is happening to Louis Yi. Looking at the scoreboard, which said about the successful mastery of firearms skills, the guy was pleased with the result. Having mastered all the pistols 100%, Louis Yi, after several painful days of training, received what he wanted, his first power. After successful training, the hero goes to the next stage to raise his level in order to catch up with other players, because despite the increased power, he is still a first-level player. As he is about to leave the premises, Louis Yi sees a girl looking at him at the door, pretending not to notice him. Having passed by, the hero goes out into the street. First, he decides to go to the equipment store to buy a pistol and ammunition for it. While Louis Yi was walking to the store, two guys were talking about the game, one telling the other that the game had over 10 million players in just a few days of existence. The gun store had many large shelves displaying various types of bladed weapons and firearms at various prices. Approaching one of the display cases, the guy's jaw dropped when he saw how much the weapons cost. Louis Yi has no choice. He needs a weapon to go on his next mission, and he can't live without a weapon, so he buys a pistol, ammunition, and a sword from the store. Having purchased everything he needs, the hero leaves the store and goes to the Mirror Kingdom to go through the next stage in raising his rating. To play in the Mirror Kingdom, there are certain conditions, one of which is that the participant must be 5 levels lower than his mirror copy. The second condition is that the payment for victory is 10% of the opponent's gold reserves. Louis Yi thinks that with a level like his he can easily win, because for each victory points are awarded, which then add up to the player's rating. There was no one in the Mirror Kingdom. The guy looked around. A spacious, bright room appeared in front of him. Suddenly, Louis Yi heard someone's voices coming from the door. The doors opened, and 2 young men came out of the next room. One walked with his head bowed down. The second put his hand on his shoulder, thereby providing support. The men talked about the crushing defeat from the mirror copies. They did not immediately notice Louis Yi sitting down on the sofa. The 2 men drew attention to the guy standing in front of them, holding a pistol in his hands. The men told him that with such an arsenal, he could not defeat a single player. Hansa looked at Louis Yi and, turning to his friend, said that this was a newcomer who wanted to try himself in the Mirror Kingdom. Finding the reception desk, the guy walked up to it and pressed the screen. A scoreboard appeared on the screen to confirm entry into the game. Louis Yi confirmed his participation in this game. Louis Yi moved to a special room to play the game. His opponent stood in front of him. It was his mirror copy, but 5 levels higher. The game between them would begin in a few seconds. After the game started, Louis Yi's opponent quickly rushed towards him, waving his sword in the air. The hero reacts quickly, takes out his pistol, points it at his opponent, and pulls the trigger. His opponent quickly dodges the bullet. With his sword, he knocks the pistol out of Louis' hands, which flies straight to the floor. The opponent swings his weapon. In his defense, Louis Yi takes out a sword from his pocket and points it at his opponent's sword. His opponent turns out to be stronger than the hero, but Louis reminds himself that heaven did not give him a second chance, so that he is now trembling with fear. It is time to open up. Then the hero applies great force, with the help of which he pushes the opponent away from himself and delivers a critical blow, causing the mirror copy to dissolve in the air. Louis Yi won, but this is just the beginning. After successfully completing the game, the scoreboard displays congratulatory words, level points, and money that he earned in this match. The 2 men left on the other side watch as Louis Yi undergoes the test. They couldn't believe their eyes that Louis Yi managed to defeat his mirror copy, which is 5 levels higher than him. Usually after such fights, players do not return alive. The heroes decide to ask their management for a course for further bets on Louis the Barge. They get an answer almost immediately. Louis Yi chooses the next opponent for the second battle. Two guys are watching him. They want to see what choice Louis Yi will make in order to place bets. The hero takes as his opponent a mirror copy of the player, 10 levels higher than him. His nickname is Thunder. Arriving at the front desk again, Louis Yi registers himself for the next game, and after successfully completing it, he heads into the game. Looking at who Louis Yi chose as his opponent, Hansa and his partner were shocked. The two guys don't understand why Louis Yi chose this particular player as his opponent, because there are other opponents more suitable for the guy. Hansa does not fully understand what is happening. Sitting down and putting his hands on his head, the hero thinks about what to do with the bet. Hansa answers through tears. They have no choice. They will have to bet on Louis Yi, since they have already requested permission to do so. The heartbroken guys sit on the couch and cry because everyone else bet on Thunder, Louis Yi's opponent. Out of despair, Hansa tears his t-shirt. At this time, Louis Yi arrived at the battle site. The game will start in a few minutes. Before the start of the game, the guy pierces his leg with a sword. He decides to rid himself of fear by invigorating himself with pain. A huge stream of scarlet liquid flows down the leg. It is from the wound that blood is gushing out like a fountain in all directions. With 2 seconds left before the game starts, Louis Yi points his gun and sword at his opponent. The game has started. Louis Yi flies up and runs towards Thunder. The opponent swings his sword, which knocks Louis and the gun off his hand, which flies to the side and then falls to the floor. The guy has no choice but to defend himself with his sword. Louis Yi tries to confront his rival. The hero took a comfortable position for the attack. Louis Yi looks at his opponent in this position. The hero did not see a single scratch on his body after such a fight. And then the guy realized that he had chosen the strongest opponent for himself, whom he would never defeat. Louis Yi realized late that from the very beginning, he should have chosen a weaker opponent, so there would have been a chance to win. But now he might not get out of here alive. The hero decides to take his will and strength into his fist and try to win, no matter what the cost. Holding a sword in his hand, the guy rushes as fast as he can towards his opponent. Thunder manages to quickly react to his attacks. Louis Yi points his gun at him and pulls the trigger, but the man jumps back. Standing behind him is a man who swings his sword to stab Louis Yi in the back. The hero feels that someone is standing behind him, quickly turns around, points the gun, and fires a control shot. This was a trick from Louis. The shot went straight to the enemy's head, and the mirror copy of Thunder began to leave the game. After the end of the battle, Louis Yi received a notification congratulating him on his victory. In this fight, the guy earned several money and points, which made him one step closer to high-ranking players. Delighted with his victory, the hero decides to go to the next fight. Two men sat pressed against the wall and, holding out their hands, asked the people approaching them to stop, because if Louis lost, they would owe a lot of money. Hansa thought that he might lose, and he did not want to condemn himself to death. So, holding his head, he asked to give his half of the money he earned, thinking that in the fights between Thunder and Louis Yi, Thunder would win. The man, pointing his finger at him, said that he simply couldn't get away with it. Hansa looked at him and exclaimed why they are sure that Thunder will win, maybe Louis Yi will win. To this, Manhwa answered him, if Thunder plays to some brat, then he will be ready to eat a big pile of crap. The three heroes, with their mouths open, were dumbfounded by what they saw. Seeing Louis Yi returning from the game with a victory, Wu Shik, Hansa's partner, joyfully declared their victory. Now Hansa will not have to give his money to anyone. Hansa shouted loudly that he would be ready to watch someone eat a big pile of crap while mourning their defeat. Returning from the battlefield, Louis Yi saw on the monitor screen what abilities he had mastered. This began to please him, because he was becoming one step closer to victory. The hero lay quietly on the bed, and played a game until he heard Louis Yun's voice coming from the kitchen, calling him to eat. The guy took off his glasses and went to the kitchens where dinner was waiting for him. Louis Yi sat down at the table and began to eat a whole plate of rice. Chewing rice, Louis Yi thought about his acquired abilities in the game, one of which can heal, and the other, on the contrary, cripple. It will be necessary to somehow use them for their intended purpose. Louis Yun began to sit down at the table. Looking at his sister, the guy thought about the fact that if the virtual world takes over the real one, and his abilities can cope with everything, then such abilities will turn out to be the strongest. Chewing the last portion of rice, Louis Yi said that he was full. Leaving an empty plate on the table, the hero leaves the kitchen to continue testing in the game. The sister looks after her brother as he leaves and asks if he wants more, to which the guy tells her that he is full. After putting a portion of rice into her mouth, Louis Yun thought about something. She came up with the idea to find a girl for her brother as soon as possible. Manhwa accepted his defeat, grabbing Hansa's leg and begging him to allow him to give back only half of the lost amount. Hansa pushes him away, telling him that when he was in a similar situation, intending to give his money, everyone was against it. Suddenly, a guy with crimson hair appeared from somewhere. It was Jiguang. He forcefully pushes away from Manhwa Ganza, causing him to hit his head on the wall. Jiguang tells Ganza to give back all the lost money by any means. Pressed against the wall, the frightened Hansa replies that he will give up all the money he earned from this bet. Jiguang, removing his hand, gives a negative answer. He now needs many times more money than the winning bet, and Hansa does not have that kind of money. The man looks at him with a grin, saying he doesn't need his money, he wants him to help him with something. After dinner with his sister, Louis Yi gets back into the game. He immediately chooses a new opponent for the fight. Having calculated in his mind what level he had reached in all his past battles, Louis Yi chooses an opponent for the duel. It turned out to be Thunder himself, and not his mirror copy. The player himself was an even higher level than his copy, so the duel is several times more difficult. The guy still decides to take on this test, because if he wins, he will become much stronger. Hansa made a bet on Louis Yi. Wushik was unhappy with this. The man said he is sure that this time this guy will also win. To this, Wushik did not answer him. He looked at his partner. Wushik asked him why he called on everyone to bet on Louis Yi. Hansi replied, for the sake of fuss. Minho thought about it. He doesn't know who to bet on this time so as not to burn out. At this time, Louis Yi has already arrived at the battle site. He is standing opposite his opponent, Thunder, and is waiting for the start of the game, which should begin in a few seconds. While waiting for the fight to begin, the hero thinks that if he uses one of his abilities and predicts the moment to attack, he will win. The game has begun. The opponents rush towards each other. Louis Yi jumps up, takes aim in the air, and pulls the trigger. The bullet did not hit the enemy's body. This time, Louis Yi again made the wrong choice of opponent. He also turned out to be stronger than him. The guy takes aim again, and when the opponent gets too close to him, fires a shot. The bullet passed by again. Thunder looked at him angrily and said, "How dare a level 1 player attack him?" Louis Yi holds the gun at the ready so that if anything happens, he has time to pull the trigger. Thunder swings his sword. Louis Yi manages to get rid of himself by jumping up. Landing on the ground, Louis Yi looks at Thunder, waiting for the moment to attack. The guy realized that he had already seen him somewhere. Putting his hand with the gun to his face, the hero remembered where he saw him. It was he who then killed him and his sister, until the moment when Louis Yi returned to the past and woke up in his old apartment. Louis Yi does not want to die again because now his eyes have lit up with real revenge, so he does not stop trying to kill his rival. Thunder looks at him with angry red eyes because Louis is below his level and dared to challenge him. Thunder made a sharp attack wanting to catch Louis by surprise, but the hero expected this and quickly dodged, after which he ran behind the enemy. Louis Yi grabbed Thunder and put a gun in his face. Thunder could not move from fear. The guy pulls the trigger. The game is over. Louis Yi was able to defeat Thunder. He receives a notification with the successful completion of the game. In this battle, he earned a lot of points and money. The hero returns from the game with victory. People who placed bets were amazed by Louis Yi's victory. Some of them were upset about their failed bets. They didn't know how they could continue to live now, because they had put all their savings on the line. The Hans and Wu Shik discussed with each other that Louis Yi is very strong. Now Jiguang will start hunting him. Wu Shik guessed if Louis Yi reached level 23, winning all tournaments, then what is the probability that he would defeat a level 30 opponent? Hansa, holding his hair, said, "It is possible that in this case, Louis Yi would be in great danger." Louis Yi has become stronger than other players. Now he decides to go into battle with the strongest level 30 player. According to rumors from other players, a level 30 opponent is invincible. Almost no one has been able to defeat him. Louis Yi stood and listened to the conversation of two guys who were discussing that same level 30 fighter, saying that his nicknames of an invincible mirror copy and the strongest fighter were given to him for a reason. Without hesitation, the guy approaches the registration desk in the game and chooses as his opponent the one who is called Invincible. It's time to fight him. The guy confirmed his participation in this fight. Registration is ended, so Louis Yi goes to the game. Jiguang says that you can start placing bets. Some people bet on Louis Y and others on Thunder. Hansa bets on Louis Yi. Wu Shik tries to convince him, saying that he needs to bet on Thunder because it is unlikely that the boys will be able to defeat him. But his partner does not listen to him. Hansa said he believed in the forces of Louis the Word. The hero has arrived in the game. The fight between him and Thunder will begin in 10 seconds. The game started. Thunder flew towards the guy so quickly that Louis Yi couldn't react properly. The guy was defeated. With each blow of Thunder, he lost his strength. Louis Yi points his weapon at the enemy's sword and tries to fight back. The hero holds on, decides to direct all his power against him. Louis Yi pushes Thunder away with all his might and points the gun at him, taking aim. Loud sounds of gunfire are heard. Seeing the bullets healing him, Grom defends himself from them. The opponent then quickly takes off and rushes straight towards Louis Yi, trying to strike. The guy tries his best to resist him. Thunder hits Louis Yi's body with his sword. The guy grimaces from piercing pain. His legs give way and he falls to the floor. Having regained his composure a little, Louis Yi rises to his feet. He looks at Thunder, analyzing him. Although the hero's characteristics are equal to level 46, he still turns out to be weaker than Thunder. But if this is all that the opponent is capable of, then victory will be for Louis Thunder. During the game, Louis Yi begins to learn his previously acquired blessing skill. Activation of the ability was successful. The hero can use it within 1 minute. Thunder rushes into action, intending to win this game. Louis Yi points the gun at him and pulls the trigger. The bullet flies past the man running towards him. Louis Yi shoots again and again, but all attempts at shooting do not bring any results. The guy is serious. He still continues to take shots because he must not lose. All the wasted bullets lightly grazed Thunder's body, and then simply fell to the ground. The man takes a comfortable position for an attack. Louis Yi looks at him and understands why no one could deal with him before. The guy decides to replace the cartridges in his pistol with more powerful ones. Thunder breaks into places, makes a jump, and soars in the air with his sword. Louis Yi aims at the man healing him. The guy shoots, and a loud sound of a shot is heard throughout the room. A flying bullet hits Thunder's shoulder. The guy points the gun at him again. Taking aim, he pulls the trigger. The bullet pierced the enemy's metal helmet and went straight to his head. Thunder fell to the ground dead. The game was over for him. He began to leave it forever. Louis Yi returned to the game. Everyone was shocked by his victory. The hero received a notification about the successful completion of the game. The scoreboard showed the number of points and money earned. Ji Guang clenched his fist, and looking at the guy, couldn't believe his abilities. The guy turns out to be strong. Ji Guang's eyes lit up with anger. He had never seen such a powerful player who was able to cope with an opponent several ranks higher than Louis Yi himself. The Hans and Wu Shik were jumping up and down in delight. They couldn't get enough of their winning bet. The guy exclaimed, rejoicing he was right that Louis Yi would win. Wu Shik, taking him by the hand, said, "It's too early to rejoice. You never know what can happen." And Hans's smile disappeared from his face. Returning from the virtual world to the real one, Louis Yi sat down on the bed. Louis Yun's voice could be heard from outside the door, worried that her brother was hungry. The brother invited his sister to go eat at one of the local establishments with his money earned in the game. After getting dressed, Louis Yi and Louis Yun went to eat. The next morning, the hero sat in front of the computer and placed an order for glasses for the game for his sister. The delivery time was 2 months. Louis Yi was very upset about this, since in 24 days the game would take over the real world. Louis Yi was depressed that the order would not arrive in time, and his sister would not be able to become a player. The hero decides to try harder to protect his world from attacks. Louis Yun and her friend Nian Chu are walking in the park and drinking cool drinks. The friends haven't seen each other for quite some time, so Nian Chu asks Louis Yun why she invited her to meet her. Louis Yun was lost in her thoughts about the fact that she called her to persuade her friend to become a girl for her brother. But the girl did not voice this to her friend. Returning from her thoughts, the girl replied that she missed her friend very much, then asked her where she had gone. There had been no news from her for so many days. Clutching her head, Nian Chu didn't know how to confess to her friend what she had been hiding from her for a long time. Plucking up courage, the girl expresses as if in spirit that her parents forced her to play a very interesting game in which she can earn a lot of money. Louis Yun was very surprised by her friend's words. She never thought that her friend would also immerse herself in the virtual world like her brother. While the girls are walking in the park, something terrible happens at a local club. A girl came to Ji Guang's club to support him in his loss. This made the man very angry, causing him to punch the girl with crimson hair in the face. From such a strong blow, the girl loses her balance and falls to the floor. Numerous abrasions appear on her face, from which blood oozes. Becoming enraged, the man began kicking the girl. Noticing the waiters standing and watching what was happening, Ji Guang told them to get out of here before they got screwed too. The men, without thinking twice, hurried away. Someone called Ji Guang. The man decided to ask whether they found what he asked for on the other end of the line. The other side gave him a negative answer, which made Ji Guang furious. The man listened carefully to what was offered to him. After listening to the proposal, Ji Guang asked if it would definitely work, and he was given a positive answer. After spending some time in the real world, Louis Yi returns to the game to complete the mission he started. The hero with his current player level will no longer be able to stay in the Mirror Kingdom. He will be forced to go to another place to raise his rating. He decides to continue his mission in the Broken Kingdom. Suddenly, Louis Yi stops abruptly. Something that comes to his mind is that he should upgrade all his equipment. The hero comes to a special room to issue and replace weapons. In the huge room, there were numerous shelves with various types of weapons. The guy approached one of the display cases. He stood next to it for a very long time and could not make a choice. After some time, Louis Yi decides to postpone buying weapons and go straight to the Ruined Kingdom, and he will still need the money to live in the real world. In the Ruined Kingdom, the hero can quickly reach the level he needs and solve the problem with equipment. Many players gathered in the huge building, wanting to raise their ratings just like him. An unknown man approaches Louis Yi and asks him if he knew that Ji Guang's team went to the house raid and lost. To which the guy replies that he heard completely different information. According to one player, one of the participants received a reward for killing all his comrades. Louis Yi thought that in order to pass the tests in the ruined kingdom, you need to gather enough people into your team to win. The hero came to the conclusion that with his current level he could join a team with level 30 players, but first decides to join a team with level 20 players. Louis Yi approaches one of the team players and asks to be accepted into the team, to which the man replies that they only need level 30 players. The guy leaves. To the side he sees the captain of the other team standing. The hero approaches him, asking him to take him in, to which he is told that he has unsuitable equipment for the test. Desperate, the guy hopefully approaches the third team and makes attempts to accept him into their team. One of the players answers him that they do not need new players. Holding his head, Louis Yi screamed in despair, saying that he was no worse than other players, because he had defeated an opponent several levels higher than him. Standing on all fours, the hero has no choice but to start from the very bottom to get his equipment. Rising to his feet, the guy decides to leave, when suddenly someone appears behind him and calls out to him. Hearing a voice behind him, Louis Yi turns his head in curiosity. Ji Guang stood in front of him and invited him to join his Team 35 raid for 10 people. Looking at the man, Louis Yi thinks about whether to accept his offer or not. The man seems familiar to the hero, as if he had seen him somewhere. Having heard no answer, Ji Guang was about to leave. But then Louis Yi announced that he agreed to join him on the team. The man said to follow him. The guy went after him. Ji Guang brought Louis Yi to meet his team. The guy looked around at everyone present, who were looking at him intently. One of the members of Ji Guang's team said that it was time to move forward, because today he wants to reach level 40, for which they give a lot of points that will help raise the rating by several tens of %. The bald man took his friend by the shoulder and said that if he wanted to reach level 40, then he needed to change his equipment. The whole team headed off, Louis Yi trailing behind them. After walking a considerable distance, the man with his hair braided in a ponytail stopped and said that they had arrived at the place. Ji Guang instructed everyone to guard and protect the gem. Having listened to the commander's order, the team began to carry it out. Everyone stood up to protect the precious stone. Louis Yi stood and looked at the diamond sticking out of the ground. The team received a task to protect the stone. Victory will be theirs if they keep the stone safe during 3 attacks. Before the hero could finish reading the task, he heard someone approaching them. Turning his head, Louis Yi looked into the distance. A huge number of giant ants were approaching them at high speed. The ants were getting closer and closer to the battle site. The bald man ordered Louis Yi to protect the crystal. The man smiled and went into battle. Each member of the team began to fight, while Louis Yi remained to protect the stone. Noticing the ants approaching him, Su Ming screamed loudly. Swinging his weapon, he cut the ants approaching him in half. The second player, using his sword, cut the monsters into pieces, from which body parts flew in different directions. The third participant used the power of his blows to fight the ants and also successfully dealt with them. Everyone was busy killing the ants, and only one person stood guarding the stone. Feeling that someone was standing behind him, Ji Guang looked back. His partner approached him with a weapon in his hands. A giant ant was flying towards them. The two men were engrossed in conversation with each other that they did not notice an ant running past them. The ant ran past the man, and from its fast speed he lost his balance. The ant began to approach Louis Yi, who was guarding the stone. The guy needed to protect the diamond safe and sound until the end of the first test, so he began to prepare for the fight. Drawing his sword, he deals a fatal blow to the ant. All monsters were destroyed. The team received a notification that the first round had been successfully completed. There were 2 more battles ahead. The next one would come in 10 minutes. The ants have disappeared, and all team members are sitting on the sand and resting, restoring their strength for the next fight. Chang Wu praised Louis Yi, telling him that with his beginner's equipment, he successfully completed the first task. Xiao Shan was upset that he did not notice the ant that was approaching the crystal, and if not for Louis Yi, the diamond would have come to an end. Su Ming instructed Louis Yi to stand with them in defense so that they would not let a single ant pass through. Chang Wu suggested that Louis Yi join their team so he could replace one player from their team. Looking at Louis Yi, the man asked him what he thought about this. The guy exclaimed joyfully. He agreed to join their team. Raising his hand, Chang Wu decides to ask Ji Guang's opinion. Ji Guang closed his eyes and smiled and said, he is not against Louis Yi joining his team, on the one condition that he provides him with a phone number and real residential address. Louis Yi begins to not like this turn of events. Why did Ji Guang need his phone number and address? If Louis Yi agrees to this condition, then he can safely join our team. Putting his index finger to his lips, the hero began to think. All team members watched with enthusiasm and waited for an answer. With a grin on his face, the guy said, this was the purpose of calling him to the team. Ji Guang looked at him in confusion. The hero thought that of all those present in the hall then, It was him that Ji Guang called to him. "You even deliberately missed the monster to look at my strength and power." And then they invited me to join their team on a permanent basis in order to find out personal information about me. Looking at the angry man, Louis Yi realized that Ji Guang was the person in charge of the mirror realm. The hero was able to understand Ji Guang's true intentions. He specifically intended all the guys here to find out my phone number and home address through them for his own personal purposes. The man tried to reassure him that this was not so. Louis Yi thought that with such a strong team he could gain strength and earn money. But when Ji Guang showed all his cards, the hero realized that there was no point in hiding either. The man was filled with anger. He wanted to say something to Louis Yi. He decided to come close to him. The entire team watched the further actions of the two men. Ji Guang called Louis Yi shameless for imagining that he could defeat his entire team alone. Louis Yi pointed his gun at one of the players and fired. Seeing the body of his team's dead player lying on the ground, Ji Guang was shocked. The deceased player began to leave the game forever. For killing a player, Louis Yi receives a special trophy. Looking straight into Ji Guang's eyes, Louis Yi was preparing to kill his entire team. The man became very angry. Ji Guang instructed his team to destroy the boy. Each player killed reduces their chances of surviving in the real world when the game takes over. The next bullet was shot in the forehead by a guy with curly hair. Xiao Shan tried to strike, but Louis Yi put the gun to his neck and pulled the trigger. For all dead players, the game is over, so they leave it forever. Louis Yi looks at Ji Guang with hatred. The man and the remaining team members don't understand. Their equipment and rating are much better and higher than his, so why can't they defeat him then? Ji Guang was very angry. He suggested that the guy stop, because if the entire team died, they would not be able to complete this mission. Louis Yi replied, "It has nothing to do with him. He can go back and go to the mirror realm." The man was furious. He said that he would gather people so that Louis Yi would never be allowed into the mirror room again. The hero grinned at his words. Suddenly, unexpectedly, Louis Yi knocks down one of the team member Ji Guang with the tip of his ball. Su Ming was preparing to take the blow next, but the man managed to quickly dodge. Louis Yi shoots two men at once. Ji Guang begins to boil with anger and hatred. All members of his team were destroyed. Ji Guang was left alone with Louis Yi. The hero pointed the gun at the man. Ji Guang knelt down in front of him and began to beg Louis Yi to spare his life. The man said that if he left him alive, he would tell him the most important secret of the ruined kingdom. Louis Yi prepared to listen to his story. Ji Guang exclaimed that he would tell him everything if Louis promised not to kill him. Without waiting for his story, Louis Yi pulls the trigger. The man falls to the ground with a crash. After a while, Ji Guang rises to his feet, pain coursing through his entire body. Seeing the injured man get back to his feet, Louis Yi was very surprised as to why Ji Guang did not die. 10 minutes have passed, which means that the second attack in the fight for the crystal should begin. While trying to get up, Ji Guang said, if Louis Yi wants to be a strong player, he must know some of the secrets of the Broken Kingdom. The angry man promised to report this to his superiors, and then Louis Yi would not only have to deal with him. Standing up, Ji Guang said to Louis Yi, his chances of winning were 0 if he thought he could attack players taller than him. The man begs the hero to let him go, for which he promises to tell him his secret, and then they can work together. Louis Yi looks at Ji Guang and wonders who told him that he was unable to leave the dungeon on his own. The man shouted to him that he was level 28, and especially with the equipment of a beginner, he could not cope alone. Louis Yi waves his hands and says that his equipment preparation is level 58, so he can handle it by himself. In addition, the hero has equipment that was given food by members of Ji Guang's team. The man stared at him with wide eyes. He didn't notice which member of his team gave it to him. The hero decides to use the equipment given to him. Upon opening the equipment handed to him, Louis Yi is given a new suit and weapons, much better than what he had before. Thanks to the new equipment that the team gave him, the hero acquired a level 46 combat ability. The guy was very pleased with this. Looking at Ji Guang in his new uniform, Louis Yi tells him that with such equipment, even his team could not handle him. The man had a look of shock on his face. Ji Guang began to shout furiously, let Louis Yi not hope that with the new equipment he could leave the dungeon himself. While the heroes were arguing, at this time the second attack began. A giant ant flew straight towards the gem. With his sword, Louis Yi cut the healing ant into pieces. The guy grinned. The hero went to fight large insects. He successfully cut the ant that treated him in half every time. Louis Yi liked his new weapon. It was very powerful. The insects kept coming and going on him. The hero fought hard against them. A large number of dead ants fell from the hill and lay on the ground. The guy needs to regain his strength, so he puts his hand on his chest and begins to heal himself. Ji Guang also destroyed these creatures. The man shouted to Louis Yi that he wanted to watch him die. Ji Guang wants Louis Yi to pay for his arrogance. The guy kicked the insect, which subsequently fell apart. The hero answered Ji Guang to worry about himself, because if something happens, he will not save him. Ji Guang was beside himself with anger. The man noticed that while he was distracted, an ant crept up on him. The insect wanted to attack, but Ji Guang struck the ant with his fist. Louis Yi was healed again. All the insects were practically dead. Ji Guang was shocked. He didn't understand where Louis Yi got so many healing potions from. The insect bit the man on the hand, causing him to lose several of his glasses. Ji Guang decides to take potions to restore his strength. He can't believe his eyes. Ji Guang has used up all his potions. The giant ants continue to attack him. The insects have already completely devoured it. A man doesn't want to die like that, being eaten. From the hill, Louis Yi shouted to him that he would wait until he died so that Ji Guang would pay in full. The guy was happy about this. The insects defeated Ji Guang, and the man began to drop out of the game. The second battle was over. Another one was waiting ahead. Louis Yi sat down on the ground to rest. The killed ants began to disappear. Louis Yi receives another reward, which gives him the right to receive any 3 items from killed players. The guy was pleased. The hero took the reward into his own hands. Louis Yi realized that he had wasted his ability, which would take more than 10 minutes to recover. The guy decides to use the golden ball he obtained. A window opens in front of the hero with a choice of equipment or items that he wants to receive. Louis Yi selects equipment. He gets a pistol with which he can inflict triple damage or stun an opponent, and an amber earring. The hero is very happy that he now has 4 characteristics exceeding 100, which make him the strongest player. Putting his hand to his chin, Louis Yi still decides to thank Ji Guang's team. Bowing to the ground, he bows in gratitude. The third battle has begun. Now the hero will have to fight alone. In the room where new players are revived, a silhouette appeared. Ji Guang, having survived, contacts his boss, to whom he informs that Louis Yi has a special secret that helps him be 1 step ahead of all the powerful players. The man adds that if this were not so, then he would not have died by his hand. His boss, without thinking twice, gives an answer. He gives Ji Guang a chance to regain his strength and return to the game, while he himself deals with the boy and sends the right people to him. The man bowed to his superior, thanking him. Ji Guang wants to see how long Louis Yi will continue to be so arrogant. While Louis Yi was in the virtual world, his sister in the real world was sitting in a cafe with her friend. Louis Yun was surprised that her friend's entire family was playing this game. Putting her elbow on the table, the girl replied that her parents raise a lot of money there and force their daughter to do the same. Nian Chu invites her friend to play this game together. Louis Yun does not have a device for this game. Louis Yun comes up with an idea to leave his friend to play with her brother. A new batch of insects rush to attack. Louis Yi dealt with them with ease. It feels very strong and powerful. The blade he holds in his hand has become much lighter. The hero jumps high and raises his sword above his head. Louis Yi saw something below. His gaze fell on something beautiful and unusual. The guy landed on the ground, swung his sword. The force of the weapon killed most of the ants. The guy looked at the precious crystal. Insects ran towards him in a crowd. The guy began to run as fast as he could towards the stone, and when he came running, he pointed his weapon at the ants. In the distance, behind the gray clouds, something began to appear. A huge level 35 spider began to descend from heaven to earth. Louis Yi prepares to go on the attack with him. The guy flies up to him and deals a fatal blow. The hero received a notification with victory in 3 fights, so he can safely leave the dungeon. Louis Yi's sword was stuck into the spider's body, and the hero himself was sitting on the body of the dead spider. The killed spider began to leave the battle site. Louis sat and thought how strong he was. Having won, the hero began to get out of the dungeon. The guy returned to the real world and looked out the window. Looking at the beautiful view of the city from the window, Louis Yi is proud of himself. Bowing his head, the guy thought it would be ideal to make his sister a player in this game. The voice of Louis Yun, who had returned home, was heard from the corridor. Louis Yi turned his head towards the sound. The guy went out to meet his sister. The girl showed off her purchase to her brother. Louis Yi was shocked when he saw the same device for entering the game in his sister's hands. The hero was very happy about this. Louis Yun helped her friend find this device, so from now on, Nian Chu will live with them. Nian Chu greeted Louis Yi. The hero hurried to take the box from his sister's hands. The guy didn't understand how the girls managed to get him. Louis Yun told her brother to pay attention to her friend more often. Nian Chu chuckled. A day earlier, a group of people were sitting in a circle and talking about clearing the dungeon, so they would defeat the second team and make a lot of money. Wei Shi is a member of the third team. Chao Yan said that after clearing the dungeon, she would be able to join the first team. Wei Shi thought about his words. The man was worried about how their team would fare without Wei Shi after she transferred to another team. Chao Yan said that without this girl they would end. The man then added that they would try to cope without her. Chao Yan addressed Wei Shi, telling her to never forget her team. The girl smiled sweetly and said that she would always remember them. The head of the team wished the girl good luck in the new team. All the team members also wished Wei Shi good luck. The guys also added that if she has any difficulties, she can always turn to them for help. The girl was grateful to them for everything. Scratching her eye, Wei Shi wanted to ask them for a favor. The guys looked at her questioningly. Suddenly, out of nowhere, all the team members fell to the ground. Chao Yan was healed and was very angry. Wei Shi did all this with her team, who wanted to activate the dungeon message reward. The man was very angry with the girl because his team treated her very well. Smiling, Wei Shi said that there was no need to be angry. It was just a game. Chao Yan told her to go to hell. The man wanted to shoot her, but he didn't succeed. The girl decides to use her melee weapon. Wei Shi points him towards the guy's neck. The next day, one of the teams fought an underground monster. Someone cuts his jaw with a weapon. The captain of this team is very good. The monster died at the hands of the captain. Grumdenshin was very pleased with himself. The captain looked at his partner, who was looking somewhere. Tenten said he felt that another player with great strength and power had appeared. Thunder asked if he could win the new player over to his side. Tenten, crossing his arms, said that it was the player who killed the most important mirror realm. Thunder was very surprised by this. Looking at Thunder, the guy decides to ask him what Wei Shi is doing now. Wei Shi is in the forest at this time. The girl receives a message that she should meet a new player, Ye Shine, pseudonym Louis Yi. Wei Shi is very interested in this. The girl thinks players with enormous power are very rare. Wei Shi came up with something. The girl decides to kill Louis Y. Louis Yi was sitting in his room at the computer desk. Putting his finger to his lips, he thinks about how he can raise his level to 60 before the virtual world takes over the real one. After the capture, the city will run out of many resources, including food, so the hero decides to stock up on huge supplies of food. And he also decides to establish a fortified camp for himself and his sister, so that they can live in safety after the absorption of the real world. To establish the camp, Louis Yi buys the entire building next door. Now the main goal of the hero is to reach level 60 and stock up on food. 3 players are in the primordial realm in the weapons pavilion. Louis Yun holds a weapon in his hands to train his strength and power. Nian Chu and her friend test all types of weapons. Louis Yi, before leaving, told the girls to stay here until they had tried all the weapons to the maximum. Looking at the girls again, the hero thought that he had radically changed the course of the whole story, because in her past life, Nian Chu did not live in their apartment. The guy had nothing to do with the girl bringing gaming devices to his sister. But thanks to her, he and his sister were able to live in safety. Leaving the girls in the training room, the hero himself headed to achieve his goal. For half a day, Louis Yi spent time fighting with the next monsters to raise his rating. After the victory, he was about to leave the dungeon and heard his companions talking about him. The men said that Louis Yi was so strong that he could clear the dungeon alone. The guy said goodbye to them, said that he had business ahead of him, but they would definitely meet again later. The players looked at Louis Yi and said that they would not go to the next battle without him. The guy suggested that when he returned, they would go into the dungeon together again. Coming out of the dungeon, Louis Yi sat down. Something was bothering him. The guy was thinking that at this rate he would not reach level 60, since it takes half a day to clear the dungeon, and the experience gained here is equal to half the level. And there is only one left before capturing the real world, not so much time. The hero sat on a bench and decided for a very long time what to do. Frowning his brows, Louis Yi realized that there was only one way out of this, killing 9 players in the dungeon. This was the only way he could improve his rating. The guy was in despair. While the hero was making a decision, he received a message. He was puzzled who decided to write to him. The message was from Wei Shi, who invited the guy to join her in the dungeon. Louis Yi thought about the girl's name. The hero suddenly realized what kind of girl this was. The guy remembered that she was one of the strongest players in her previous life. Louis Yi didn't understand why Wei Shi invited him to the dungeon with her. The guy didn't know whether to agree or not. The hero decides to accept the girl's invitation, only to find out what Wei Shi is up to. Having accepted the invitation, Louis Yi displayed all the members of Wei Shi's team on the monitor screen, with whom he went to the dungeon. This pig, one of the team members, in a past life, he managed to receive the Stalemate Award for completing the test completely. Cookie, a girl with blonde hair, in the past, she slandered her friend, whom she later killed. The remaining 7 participants have similar stories. Did Wei Shi really select them according to this principle? Louis Yi thought about it. After joining the team chat, Wei Shi sent coordinates for further work. The guy opened the map and studies it in detail. Louis, and something alerted me. The uncontrolled zone where Louis Yi goes is the most dangerous place for all players. After all, creatures of level 80 live here, which the most experienced players cannot reach. Louis Yi arrived at the scene. In the depths of the forest, he heard a sound. Arriving at the sound, the hero hid. Looking out, the hero saw huge green monsters, of which there were a lot. Monsters that attacked someone. Looking at them, Louis Yi did not understand who could defeat so many monsters. Even a strong fighter could not cope with them. Having fully looked out of the fence, the guy saw that the monsters had left. He decides to go see if everything is okay with the player who was attacked by the monsters. The hero ran. He saw an object flying at him. Louis Yi managed to dodge in time. A guy with a spear stood next to him. The hero did not understand who it was. Louis Yi looked at the man he didn't know. The hero took out his sword and began to defend himself from the man. The stranger smiled maliciously. The players stood opposite each other. The pig looked at Louis Yi and said, "Now it's clear why Wei Shi chose him. He also has power." Louis Yi kept his sword with him. It could come in handy in case of a surprise attack. Changing his face, the man said, "The guy's power is no different from his." The pig indicated to the hero to follow him to the collection point. Louis Yi went after him. The hero did not like the fact that he had a rival as strong as himself. With his head down, Louis Yi followed, wondering if he would be able to get out of this place alive. 8 players gathered at the rally point. Louis Yi runs. Stopping, the hero sees Wei Shi in front of him. The girl sits on a stone and apparently waits for him. Wei Shi, clapping her hands, attracted everyone's attention. The girl said that she had a couple of instructions before entering the dungeon. Louis Yi looked at her carefully. All team members also paid attention to the girl. Wei Shi raised her index finger, saying that when they entered the dungeon, they needed to familiarize themselves with the rules. The team hit the road. Louis Yi was very nervous because he might not come back alive. Gathering his strength, the hero set off. It was deep night. The guy decides to prove to himself that he is no worse than the other player. The team finally made it to the dungeon. The guys received a notification that the entrance to the dungeon will soon be closed. The team members decide to hurry. They are given the first task, the essence of which is to kill a puppet that will be in the backpack of one of the team members within 6 hours. Louis Yi was shocked by what he saw. The team's game will begin in a few minutes. The hero needs to make sure that there is no puppet in his backpack. All team members look at each other. Louis Yi looks at his comrades, carefully inspecting them to see if they have a puppet. Pops are heard. Louis Yi turns his head. Wei Shi addressed the team, asking whoever had the puppet to come out so that for his death, all players could give part of their reward. Everyone agreed, only Louis Yi did not understand what was happening. While the rest of the team is distracted, the guy decides to check his backpack. Louis Yi's eyes widened at what he saw. There was a puppet in his backpack. The hero looks at the team members and chooses a potential victim for himself, the one he will kill so that the puppet goes to another person. Wei Shi again asked whoever was holding the puppet to confess, but the players were silent. Louis Yi stood with his eyes down on the floor. The girl knew that the puppet was in the guy's backpack, so she came so close to him. The hero looked at her with wide eyes. Looking at Louis Yi, Wei Shi said that they still didn't know each other, and then the girl introduced herself to him. The guy looked at her silently. He then raised his eyes and looked at all the team members. The pig smiled maliciously. Louis Yi was lost in his thoughts. His thoughts were filled with the incident that everyone did not study each other's reactions and behavior, but immediately said that the puppet was in his possession. And then the hero concluded that they were all together. Louis Yi guessed that Wei Shi planned everything in advance, specially invited him to the team in order to get rid of him once and for all. The hero comes up with an amazing idea and decides to destroy them all in order to receive the stalemate reward. The guy looked at the girl angrily. Wei Shi admired Louis Yi for his character, but then told him that his strength was no match for her team. The pig asks Wei Shi to give the guy a chance to defend himself, and then we will break his dream into small pieces. The girl covered her face with her eyes, saying, "It's too cruel to deprive the guy of his dreams." Wei Shi looked at Louis Yi. She is giving him a chance to defend himself against them. The hero prepares his equipment for battle. A weapon begins to appear in his hand. Louis Yi points the gun at Wei Shi and takes aim. The hero holds a pistol to shoot. The girl raised her hands to her head and turned away. Turning to face him and looking into his eyes, Wei Shi said that with equipment like his, he would not be able to defeat them. The pig said, "Louis Yi is not as simple as it seems at first glance." The team laughed at him. Holding her stomach, Wei Shi laughed cheerfully. Louis Yi smiled. The girl foresaw what the guy was going to do. Louis Yi shot at her, but Wei Shi managed to dodge. The girl admitted that she did not expect such an action from Louis Yi, so she managed to get scared. Looking angrily at the guy, Wei Shi gave the command to her guys to attack him. Louis Yi, holding his pistol at the ready, aimed at Hog. The sound of a shot rang out. The bullet flew at him, and on the fly it turned into powerful chains that held the man, making him unable to move. The men could not understand what was happening. Wei Shi glanced sideways at Louis Yi. The hero stared at the girl, intending to attack her. Louis Yi was aiming at the Hog again. The hero pulled the trigger. The bullet flew straight to the target. The bullet went through the man's body. The pig fell dead. All team members were amazed. The team received a notification that a member of their team is dead, so the puppet from Louis Yi is transferred to another player. Wei Shi was shocked. None of the team members expected such an outcome. The team looked at Louis Yi in shock. Lost in his thoughts, it seemed to the guy that he was not afraid of anything. However, having joined this team, he began to be afraid of two things. First, Wei Shi wants to kill him. Second, there is another very strong and powerful opponent on the team. And all these two things will lead to one outcome, his death. The pig began to leave the game. Then Louis Yi decides to kill them all. Turning to the team, the guy warned them that the puppet was now in the possession of one of them. It was transferred immediately after the death of Kabanchik. Wei Shi was very angry. She suddenly realized what the guy was up to. The girl ordered her team to remain in their places so that Louis Yi could find whoever had the puppet. All the players were shocked. Louis Yi began to carefully examine each team member. Suddenly, his gaze stops at the man who has the puppet. The puppet was with Cookie. The girl was surrounded by the whole team. The hero rushed away. Using his weapon, he dealt fatal blows to 6 players. Wei Shi hated Louis Yi very much. The girl tried to strike him, but the hero put up his sword for protection. Cookie remained alive, and she also still had a puppet with her. While fighting with each other, Wei Shi came to the conclusion that Louis Yi wanted to receive the slaughter reward. Louis Yi only has to destroy Wei Shi, and then he will win and receive the reward. Bouncing away from the guy, the girl told him that he would regret making her his target. Wei Shi disappeared. Louis Yi was left alone. The hero couldn't believe his eyes. The girl reappeared and had already attacked the guy from behind, pointing her weapon at him. Louis Yi felt something behind him. He managed to dodge in time, otherwise the girl's blade would have passed right through him. The hero raises his sword. Wei Shi was very impressed by his resilience. 2 weapons in the air hit each other. The heroes stand face to face. The girl hopes that the guy will run out of all the medicinal potions that help him gain new strength, and then victory will be hers. Louis Yi decides to use his second weapon. Suddenly, Wei Shi raises his hand and strikes the hero with a sudden blow, but the guy immediately restores his strength with the help of a potion. The girl was very surprised at how much potion Louis had already taken. The sword cuts through the air. Louis Yi pierces the girl's body with his weapon. The hero smiles at her and says that he is the only winner here. Not expecting such a moment, Wei Shi pursed her lips. Louis Yi swung his sword again. The girl managed to jump away. She was standing next to Cookie, who was very excited about what was happening. Wei Shi was amazed by Louis Yi's excellent condition. She guessed that he might have the power of a support player. The guy looking at her saw what a critical situation Wei Shi was in and calculated that very soon her strength would run out and he would defeat her. Wei Shi thought for a moment, and then she smiled sweetly. Looking at her blade, she said, "Louis," and is right. She lost, due to her lack of a sufficient amount of cognition power. Turning to the hero, Wei Shi said that she wanted to kill Cookie as quickly as possible in order to end all this as quickly as possible. Cookie looked at Louis Yi in fear. The guy began to suspect something was wrong. The hero doesn't like Wei Shi's behavior. The girl is clearly up to something. After thinking a little more, Louis Yi turned to her, telling her to quickly finish with Cookie. Bowing her head and looking intently into the guy's eyes, Wei Shi told him that if she kills Cookie, then she will no longer be able to kill him. Louis. And a new notification arrived. After reading it, he stood in a stupor. Looking at the girls, the hero did not understand what was happening. Cookie suddenly struck Wei Shi, which no one expected. The game was over for her. The girl began to leave her. After the massacre of Wei Shi, Cookie received a message from Louis Yi. He told her to kill herself, so she could receive a double reward. Cookie did so, killing herself. She left the game. What Cookie said to him before leaving the game shocked Louis Yi. As she disappeared, she told him that he had lost. Finally, the girls laughed maliciously at him. Amazed by what was happening, he sat down on the ground, comprehending what had just happened. Louis Yi thought he did everything right, but no matter what, the puppet still returned to him. The hero did not understand at what moment everything went wrong, where he could have made a mistake. Clutching his head, Louis didn't know what to do next. Desperate, the guy thought that he would not be able to get out of the dungeon, which meant he was doomed to death. The hero was looking for a way out of this situation for a very long time. Suddenly, the thought came into his head that there was another way to get out of this dungeon with victory. But which one? Louis Yi decided to do his best to look for a possible way to get out of here.